it's Natasha and thank you so much for joining me today. Today we have another fun use for all those strips and scraps that we keep. Now I do stash these to the side of me, but I must admit I like to use them regularly, otherwise they pile up, and when they pile up it feels overwhelming and that's not what I enjoy. So I try and keep these under control. I try and make a point of using them. So this is just another way that we can use up all those thin scraps. Now when I look at this pile, I don't necessarily feel or see everything that goes together and colours that go together. Obviously scraps are scraps, so they are literally just what is left over. They are what are kind of sliced off the edge to kind of, you know, square things up. But these are all strips that have come from jelly printing, they have come from brayering paint on strips, they have come from, there's a couple from serviettes that have been glued down to paper, like paper napkins. There are some shorter ones, there are some longer ones, there are some really thin ones, just everything. There are some normal like coloured paper, coloured cardstock here too. So I'm going to set to and create a few of pretty much the same style or design of card today. I'm going to be using a couple of things here. This is the Gina K Masking Magic. This is not necessarily what you need, but this is just my way that I like doing this particular technique. I just like a piece of tacky paper or low tack tape or washi tape face up, or this masking paper, anything that you have, and I just tape a little piece down to my desk face up so the sticky part is facing upwards towards me, and this helps by having just enough tack to kind of keep everything in place. So we're going to kind of weave everything together. Now I originally was going for things to have all sorts of uneven ends, end at different places, because I already had things that were kind of longer and shorter and all sorts of things. So I thought I would go with that theme and just have ends going kind of everywhere. I didn't necessarily want everything to kind of, you know, line up, but as always, plans change, but that is why I'm kind of just putting things all over the place. Some things are kind of further to the left, further to the right, further up, further down, and honestly, once I found that I put everything together, I really wasn't worrying about what went where, which colours went where. Now I am just going to stick with kind of this amount, this space, and then I took another piece, another scrap. I keep all of my scraps of the Gina K masking paper, and I'm just putting a little bit on top of that design so that when I take it off that sticky bit there, and when I pop it to the side, I know that it won't unravel and kind of come apart if I have to shift it around or move it. So I put that low tack masking tape or low tack tape or whatever you have and pop it on top to keep it all in place. Now I do have a little helper here. He was helping me to the side. This is my son, and he was doing his own as per usual. Often when I am creating something, then I will have one, if not both of my children helping me out or creating theirs often to the side, and sometimes they choose to share and sometimes they choose not to share, and that's okay too. And my son was, as usual, wanting to just add his little bits. He knew the right colors that I needed for mine, which was super helpful, so he added in a couple and then he buzzed off back to what he was doing. So as I was saying, it didn't really matter which colours. I felt like I was just kind of going all in here. So the only thing I was trying not to do is trying not to put two of the exact same colour or the exact same strip right next to each other. But other than that, I was really just popping anything on. Anything was going. For this one, I decided to really cinch them up close together and have that weave kind of tight. Now, this one I could take off and I didn't need to put any low tack tape on top of it because I had woven it tightly together, so it was going to stay put. Now, you can choose to either kind of have your weave really tight or a little bit looser like this one here. So I did put some low tack tape on top, and I just made lots of these and then put them to the side in a big pile. So as you can see, some were bigger, some were smaller, some I added more strips to, some I had less strips, and I kind of didn't have a rhyme or reason at the moment as to what was happening with these, but I knew I was going to create kind of all a similar technique or design, and I just had, honestly, it took me a couple of hours and I think I got 12 maybe of these cards done all up. So I will be able to put these in a couple of little gift box sets, like I made a video or two, maybe about 4 videos ago on my channel. I made a gift box set by just not using any dies or anything. I just make them, and I will put 5 cards and 5 envelopes and maybe even a nice little pen or something in a package that I can just gift when need be. So that was the plan with these cards. For this one here, I decided to do a heart, and I'm going to have the heart coming just off the edge. You could do 3 little random circles, like right in the middle of your design, kind of staggered down the page. You could do elements coming off the edge, like I have done. You could just do a big circle. You could do squares, rectangles. You could do stars. You could do any dies that you have to cut out kind of a random shape like this. For this one, this was going to be a little heart. Now, I did want a little border. Now, the thing with stacking hearts is that they kind of don't stack perfectly. They have that little, you know, wider part towards the top where the tops of the heart come around. So what I decided to do was I did take the layer that was slightly bigger. This is the honeybee stacking dies, and some stack better than others, so to speak, as in they kind of fit more tightly and more uniformly together, depending on the kind of style and shape of the heart that you have. But I'm going to get a bigger scrap of paper here and pop the big die down, and then I'm going to also pop the same die. Now this die here is the one that I used on my project to the left, and this one is going to stack on the inside. And for this, I was just trying to line up the bottom of the heart and make sure that that part was relatively even. And then when I pull this out, I'm going to have my little outline there, but as I said, it's not even at all, so I will need to trim it to make it even, and that's not hard at this point. I was using that bottom part for a guide as to how wide I wanted my outline to be, and then I just use my little cutter bee scissors. These are just little fussy cutting scissors, and just go around to kind of even everything out. The right hand side of this, you'll notice, will stay bulky, and I wasn't worried about that because this is the part that is going to be cut off, so that part I didn't need to worry about fixing. Now, I know that I just did white on white here, but I think even that white on white just gives it that little border, that little kind of, sometimes I think it's the finishing touches, these little extra touches in card making that really make a card. They don't have to be crazy or out there or, you know, take hours to complete, but just, I think sometimes these little extra touches are what finish the fronts of the cards for me. So I used some liquid glue to pop that around, and I was a little bit excited with the glue. So with this one, this is the Ranger Multi-Medium in the matte finish, and the perfect thing is I can just kind of scrape this all away. I just smooth my fingers over it, and I know that it will dry with no shine, no sheen, no, you know, even though there's bits coming out the side. So that is the perfect glue for me, and I pop it into those little glue bottles. I pop it in using a syringe, and I have a whole video on my channel called How to Fill a Glue Bottle. If you just search it on YouTube, you'll also see it pop up, and it's a really easy way to kind of fill up a glue bottle. Now I am deciding to cut this down a little bit because, as you know, I do like having a good border around on my card bases. All of my card bases are 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches, and I cut and score all my own bases as well as all my own card fronts from 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper, and this is where we are going to pop our little strips. Now I'm just kind of making sure everything is roughly as I want it to be. I didn't want the weave to cover the whole thing. I want kind of bits to kind of, you know, it not to be fully woven, and you could kind of see the longer bits at the top and bottom and maybe to the sides, but I'm just fixing everything at this point to make sure that it's relatively even, and I wanted there to be little gaps so that you could kind of end up seeing the height and dimension that was behind the strips. So I have 2 different kinds here. This one here is from scrapbook.com, and these are fairly cheap given how many there are in a packet, and they last me a really long time. These are really thin. These ones here are a little bit wider. I think they're double. I think the ones on the right are maybe 1/8 or 1/4 of an inch, sorry, and these scrapbook.com ones are 1/8 of an inch maybe, but anyway, nice and thin. So I got both of them out because I'm going to pop up some of these strips, and it just depended on how wide your strips are as to what width of foam tape I can put behind these, or foam strips. So I pretty much popped up a foam strip on most of those, and at this point I can take the tape off the front because I know that everything is nice and secure. If you wanted the front panel to be popped up, you would obviously put the foam on the front panel, but I wanted the woven part to be the popped up part, and that would sit with the front panel, if you know what I mean. That sounds a little bit confusing, but anyhow, so I have got some liquid glue on the back of my heart there, and I'm just going to pop some acrylic blocks on just so that it gives it a minute to set and there's some nice even pressure, and then I will be able to trim some bits and pieces and add a little bit of the final tape. So once that glue has had a moment to dry, I just pop around and cut off all those excess little pieces. I mean, they can be used in a whole nother video. In fact, I have so many videos on using up scraps and strips, because I do quite a bit of card making, so I do naturally end up with lots of those kind of leftover bits and pieces, and it can be really fun to just focus on them and actually reduce the amount that I have sitting around my desk. As I said, I have a really small space, so I don't have a whole lot of room for them to be sitting around forever. So once I have cut off those extra little pieces, I'm going to round the corners. This is just personal preference. No reason for this. I just thought it kind of looked nice, and I did have to cut a couple of strips. I'm going to cut these off in a minute anyhow, but I was just making the corners, getting everything kind of sorted and ready to go. And then from here, I am going to add a little bit of extra foam tape around the outside there, and this will just keep everything at exactly the same level as everything else. I'm using the same foam strips so that I know they are the same height. And if you take off the release paper, then you are always able to bend foam strips in really sharp corners and things. So that is worth doing if you are trying to kind of maneuver them and get them around corners, sharp corners or circles and things like that. They will sit nice and flat if you remove the release paper. And then I am going to center mine off to the right hand side of my card base, just because of the design that I've gone for today, kind of having the heart come off of the right. So I wanted everything kind of lined up, and for me the easiest way to kind of pop that on and line everything up was if I turned it upside down. Just makes it a little bit easier. And I was keeping this card really kind of clean and simple. The focus is on that gorgeous woven heart in the center there. And then to finish this off, as I said, I didn't want to take anything away from it, but I do want to add a sentiment. However, I just wanted to show you, when you wrap the foam tape around the sides there, you cannot see kind of inside the card, if you know what I mean. So that's why I really like putting those extra pieces of foam and wrapping them right around the outside. It does make the edges look really nice and clean. Now I have got a sentiment from the All Occasions Paper Rose sentiment pack, and this one just says get well soon. I am going to pop it back onto a little strip there that was just wide enough. Just using some liquid glue, I'm going to pop it down onto the purple strip, and it just gives it that extra little bit of kind of popping off the paper, because it is a gorgeous little sentiment. I didn't want anything to kind of take over that love heart, and I will pop it kind of near the bottom-ish, I guess the center, bottom third, and that is going to finish off my card today. So I had a whole lot of fun creating these, and as I said, there are so many different designs that you are able to do, whether you choose to do it kind of off the edge like me with one big one, or you can do 3 smaller circles or 3 smaller squares or hearts or anything. You could do little ones that are centered more so in the middle of the page. So lots of different ways to do it. As per usual, I will have links down in the description box below to all of the products that I have used today. It's a little bit hard to see on camera when it's still wet, but I used some glitter pen just on the outside, the clear glitter pen, and it just provides an extra little bit of shine for that border to kind of show up against our white background as well. Anyhow, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you have enjoyed this video, and I really look forward to seeing you in the next one. Thanks, bye!